Hey, welcome back to MobilityWOD. We're going to talk about why the ankle positioning is so important. Now, this athlete wanders in. He's got a good squat. He's squatting in those shoes, which tells me that he prefers to do all his squatting with a little bit elevated heel, which is kind of a mnemonic tell. But what you're seeing is that he presents with kind of flattish feet. And by his own admission, he's saying, hey, my feet are flat, right? And so you can see this navicular bone is kind of budging out. And if you see, what's happened is he sends all of his energy down and crosses into that bottom position. Now, when he was squatting before, what was happening was do your old squat, but don't screw your feet into the ground and let that ankle collapse for me, a little bit worse. So what you can see is that there's a tissue hinge right here. That knee translates forward, and when the ankle collapses, it literally impinges. It's the equivalent of having the knee come in on the hip and seeing that horrible impingement. So what we need to do is stand back up. He screws his feet into the ground. Go screw your feet into the ground. He's got to have his weight through his big toe. One of the big mistakes that we see in a lot of our athletes is they weight the heel too much. Center of mass is right in front of this ankle bone. If I pick his foot up, pick your toe up for me, and pick your big toe up, when we see people squatting the outside of the heel, you can't create torque. You've lost your arch. Basically shut your quads off. One of the reasons we need to put that big toe down on the ground is it's how we cue a triple extension. By not being able to extend, if I put my toe down, I see much better extension mechanics. So it's one of the reasons we want weight through the big ball of the big foot and definitely the big toe down. Okay, not big foot, the big toe. So here's the deal. First thing is you got to start in a better position. So he screws his feet into the ground, standing tall. He set his butt, belly tight, legs straight, and he unimpinges the hip or ankle. Up, stand back up, get that foot in a better position. Good, so now go and pick that foot up. Now he's unimpinged. So what happens is that he's created an arch, and by his own admission, he's like, hey, I have fallen arches, but not anymore, not when he's screwing his leg into the ground. So now, as he go ahead and squats for me, you're gonna see, oh, he wants to collapse, but we've got to make sure that our athletes aren't collapsing at the ankle because it impinges them. So we've got to stand back up for me again. We've got to get that foot a little bit straighter. Go ahead and stand with a little bit wider with your stance. Good. And then externally rotate. Do not let that ankle drop into a bad position. And what we're going to do is we're going to judge the quality of his squat by whether or not he collapses one of his primary joints. A collapsed ankle is the equivalent of a rounded back or a valgus knee. This is not okay. So if an athlete is squatting and you're seeing collapse of one of his primary joints, we're going to see big mechanical problems. But if he doesn't externally rotate and put that ankle into a better position, he's always going to impinge here, and that will always limit his range of motion. So screw your feet into the ground. Good. Knee tracks out. Go ahead, shove that knee out. Now he's not collapsing the limits. Go as far as you can. Now we see the true range up, and then you start to see that he's wobbling here, and because there's something restricted. And now we can start asking what the question is. He's in a foot position that we don't see a lot of decay and force torque development, but what's happening is because something's tight in the system, we're seeing him drop into that impinged position and the collapsed arch. And when we see that navicular drop, we know that that's pathognomonic for knee also traveling in. So we're seeing that. Stand back up for me again. I'm going to go ahead and have you squat, screw your feet into the ground. Knee wobble is a dead giveaway that I'm either unstable at the hip or in the knee. And you're seeing that knee wobble back and forth, which means that he's not being able to find a stable position here. It's still wobbling, and that hip isn't stable either. Stand back up, screw your feet into the ground, and this time squat for me fast. Do you see how many wobbles we had? Those are speed wobbles. Screw your feet into the ground, do it again. If you wobble again, this time we're going to kill you and banish you. Okay, here we go. Screw your feet into the ground. Oh, it's so wobbling. And now we start to see the implications of instability at the ankle for lack of range of motion or capsule, instability at the hip. He's got the motor control when he does it fast or slowly, but when he adds the speed element, we start to see that wobble. That wobble is a loss of huge force production, and when it's under big load, it ends up being catastrophic. Stand back up slowly. Now this time, screw your feet into the ground. Slowly grind to position. No knee wobble. Slow me down. Slow it down. Get to depth. No wobbling in the knees. What's the mechanism of arthritis in that knee? Unstable knee joint. Ah, better. He arrives on position. Ankle's in a better position. He's still got a little bit of arch here. We're loving that. Now stand back up. Knee out. Good. We'll take it. Nice work.